G'day, welcome to oztooltalk. Today we're doing a comparison of Sabre saws, or Hackzalls as Milwaukee calls them. Somehow in 2.5 years we've hardly reviewed a reciprocating saw in that whole time, but it happens that I can do a comparison of these units at the moment. I don't usually compare 12 volt to 18 volt platforms. I don't really feel like it's a fair comparison. Bosch has a 10.8 volt Sabre saw like this as well, which is not going to keep up with theirs at all, and so does Milwaukee. They have their M12 Hackzall, but this is the M12 FUEL, the brushless version, and I have heard people say that they think that it will compete with the 18 volt Hackzall. So I thought we'd put that to the test and turn it into a comparison of three. So we have the M12 CHZ, that's the FUEL. We have the Milwaukee C18HZ, and we have the Bosch GSA 18 VLIC. The C being for compact. It's in this compact form factor, this one-handed form factor that the Milwaukee have only had to date. I'm surprised actually that Bosch have been able to produce one so similar, basically identical. I thought that Milwaukee would have had that copyrighted and all wrapped up, but anyway, great for Bosch users that they also have access to this type of tool. As you might know, Milwaukee invented the reciprocating saw. Of course, they were the first to bring it in this shape as well, so they've really been the leaders in that industry. But as we all know, Bosch makes brilliant tools, so I'm really looking forward to this comparison. Just going to go through a few specs with you first. Length, obviously the M12 FUEL by far the shortest at 337 millimeters. Then you got the M18 at 375 and the Bosch at 400. In terms of weights, these two are the same at 2.6 kilos, and the M12 FUEL has 1.9 kilogram weight, so much lighter and much shorter. In terms of speed, they all have very similar strokes per minute, 3,000 for the Milwaukee units, 3,050 for the Bosch, and their stroke lengths go 16 mil, 19 mil, 21 mil. So the Bosch seems to have a slightly just in terms of on-paper specs. The batteries that I'm using are a 4 amp hour on the M12 FUEL and 5 amp hours on the two 18 volt units. So now that you're bored with specs, I will take you straight over to the footage and let's see which one of these is the most powerful. Okay, so we're just starting off with a real nice easy test, but a very common one for a reciprocating saw, and that's just electrical conduit, 32 mil, just 5 cuts. And the M12 FUEL was the fastest, and I think that was because it was lighter and easier to get back up to the top really quickly. This is another really easy test, just primed pine boards. I think they were 16 mil thick or something. So again, they all very easy cutting. Little bit harder now. This is 1/2 inch copper pipe, and you can see the 18 volts are a bit quicker in this one. The M18's gone a little bit faster than the Bosch, which is a fair bit faster than the M12 FUEL. And next we have 1 inch steel square hollow section. So I think it's about 2 mil thick. I'm just cutting it 5 times. This is a really good task actually to be doing with a Sabre saw. I actually find it in some ways nicer than using an angle grinder. Just, you know, no sparks, and it's easy to get a nice straight cut. Of course, the vibration is always your enemy when using a Sabre saw. The 18 volt units here, obviously cutting a lot faster again. The M18 the fastest, followed by the Bosch, then the M12 pulling up the rear, but I mean it's still cutting it very easily. It's very comfortable, so I didn't mind this test at all. Okay, now we're going to cut some timber. So this is a pine stud, just 70 by 35 mil, and this is, I feel, where reciprocating saws are at their weakest, trying to cut through structural timber. And I think the reason for that is that the stroke length, of these is ranging between 14 and 21 mil, but the timber is 35, so it's going to struggle to actually clear the material as it's cutting, which is why it feels so effective when you're doing it, to rock the tool back and forth, because you're reducing the actual amount of material you're making contact with. So the Bosch just finished those 5 cuts the fastest, followed by the M18, and the M12 with its 14mm stroke length is much slower. So as I said, not the best use of a tool, using reciprocating saws to cut through structural timber. Much better off with a circular saw or something if you can get it. Something like a circular saw or a band saw has no problem at all clearing the chips, no matter how thick the timber you're cutting is. Whereas this sort of action, this reciprocal action, does. Now this test is just another 3 cuts with slim batteries. So these are all using 2 amp hour batteries now. I just wanted to see if there was any power difference with a high capacity compared to a slim battery. I thought there would be. As it turns out, there was no discernible power difference in the hand, and when I timed them there was no difference in that either. So yeah, feel free to throw a slim battery on if you're in a tight space or need to keep the weight down for a brief period. And then lastly, the toughest test that I put them through, which is a treated pine sleeper, so 200mm by 50mm or 8x2. Again, 50mm is going even further away from the stroke length of these tools, so it's harder again. This isn't much fun at all. You'd only be doing this if you absolutely had to, and you definitely want to be rocking it back and forth, in my experience, just to make it a lot more comfortable and easy to do. So the 18V units, Bosch and Milwaukee, finished identically, so that was really good confirmation that they really are on the same power level. The M12, I'm not going to say it was struggling, because it never bogged down or slowed down, but it just takes too long and it's not very enjoyable at all, so not a recommended use for it. Well, that was enlightening. Few little things to note before we start calling winners or anything. In terms of reciprocating saws, Sabre saws, vibration is very important, but it's very hard for me, who's been using all of them repetitively, to speak to that, because they just all get really uncomfortable after a little while. But I did feel that they all manage vibration fairly well. With reciprocating saws, weight is can actually be an advantage, because the heavier units don't bounce around as much. This smaller one-handed type of unit are definitely lighter and therefore are prone to shaking around a bit more. So do keep that in mind. It is going to help you to manage vibration by having some weight on top of it, but I tended to put very little weight on it because I wanted to try and maintain a really even playing field by just not really putting any pressure on the top, just sort of holding them steady. So I mean, we're in natural timbers. I'm holding them slightly differently each time. I'm not saying at all this is 100% perfect scientific data, but I think I've done a pretty good job of controlling the variables. So anyway, I really like this form factor. I really like one-handed tools. Even though they vibrate a little bit more because of the weight, being able to hold them at arm's length is really nice. Being able to cut conduits one-handed, I really like it. A few other little things to note. As you can see, the M18 is the only one that doesn't stand up on its battery. Not that it's a big thing. The Bosch is the only one whose light doesn't stay on. They all have a little work light just under the blade. The Milwaukee stay on for a little while. The Bosch turns straight off. I think I don't know how Bosch missed that. It's pretty easy to put that in the electronics, I think. So let's sit and fix that up for next time. The only other thing is that the fuel has a brake. The other units, when you let go of the trigger, take a couple of seconds to stop. The fuel M12 fuel unit stops immediately, much like modern circular saws. So that's good. Now, as you saw in the tests, there was very little separating the two 18V units. The Bosch just ever so slightly won the timber contests mostly, but there was nothing in it. and the Milwaukee won the medal cutting through the square hollow section, 1-inch tube, but only by the smallest amount. So I really can't say that one's more powerful than the other. I think I could do those tests again with new blades again, and probably end up the other way around. They're just so similar. I don't think statistically that it's a significant difference. So I'm going to call that a dead heat in terms of power. Obviously the M12 FUEL didn't keep up, but it is really good for lighter tasks like cutting the conduits that you saw, and also like that primed molding in pine. So on the really light duty tasks, the M12 is fantastic because it keeps the weight down. It's really easy to hold. You're going to get that into spaces, you know, behind sinks or under sinks and in cabinets and behind toilets and stuff that you just would struggle to get larger units in. So I definitely think that the M12 FUEL has its place, and if you're on the M12 line, I mean, for a 10.8 volt, nominally, you know, 12 volt tool, this is pretty amazing that you can have this sort of power in a reciprocating saw. So I do really like this tool, and of course it was never, I don't think, going to keep up with the 18 volt units, but it's a real ripper. So look, I was hoping it would be nice and clear cut, but it's really not. I can't really pick a winner. I think that they're all fantastic units to use. If you put a gun to my head, I guess I would probably pick the M18 because it's an inch shorter than the Bosch, and the light stays on, but really there's nothing in it at all. I loved all of these units, but I would definitely stick with an 18 volt tool unless I had to get into really tight spaces regularly, in which case of course you'd go to 12 volts. So sorry that I couldn't be more definitive on that, but anyway, that's my comparison of the Hackzalls, the Sabre saws, and I hope you like it. Please tune in, please comment, and tell us what you want to see next. Thanks, bye.